What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know I say this all the time, but it's the truth. 3 seasons deep, and we are finally seeing Treyarch turn things partially around. For the first couple of seasons, realistically, a lot of the aftermarket parts were just, again, I don't want to be completely rude about it, but they were useless, not even fun or quirky. Like the chainsaw aftermarket kit from Modern Warfare 3 2023, which again wasn't the most useful thing, but it was fun, it was quirky. A lot of the stuff has been just, if I'm gonna be real, pretty dang useless. Of course, there was like maybe 1 or 2 different aftermarket parts that kind of stood out, but the mass majority of the content was just, like I said, useless, and it didn't really encourage anybody to hop back into the experience. But ladies and gentlemen, with this latest Black Ops tribute event, they dropped a decent amount of content, and one of the things was a aftermarket kit for the MP5, and let me tell you guys something, it is special indeed. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, before we go and dive deep, if you guys are interested in more content just like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. It posts daily here at 8 morning Eastern time. And of course, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch, starting between 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, if you guys are interested, I'll link that channel down in the description of this video. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, before we go ahead and hop into the actual MP5 conversion kit, I do want to talk about the new perk Close Shave. Now, I wasn't going to discuss this because honestly, and as a bit more of a sweaty player, I didn't really think I was going to use it, nor would I care about it. But I decided to put it on my class. I, messed around with it a bit, and I'll be honest with you guys, it's actually kind of fun, if I'm going to be completely real. It's not the worst thing in the world. Of course, like I said before, for more competitive players, more sweaty players, I don't think this perk is going to necessarily be something that you want to rock all the time. I think you'll more than likely want to, prioritize your perk 1 slot a bit better. And of course, with the perk greed, you'll probably want a different perk in general, but I'll be real, it's actually kind of fun and it's useful, especially in up and close, scenarios, obviously, where it'll shine the most. But I really do think that this will be a fun perk for a lot of casuals out there, people who, don't really play too heavily, don't really care too much about their accuracy and stuff like that. They just want to hop on for a few games. This is actually pretty fun. If you're playing like Nuketown and you're in the building, you're hunkering down and you got someone, flanking up on you. Maybe they catch you off guard when you're reloading, or maybe you just don't have as much ammunition and you're not as confident in the gunfight. Regardless, you don't have to worry about pulling out your melee weapon and, having to stick to your melee weapon. You could still have your gun out. You could be ready to fire. But if the engagement is close enough, you can obviously just go up and punch them, because you don't have to pull out your melee weapon. You can easily just hit the melee button and bam, you pull out whatever, melee weapon you have and you slap the person in front of you. Now, there's a tiny bit of lunge, but it's nothing crazy. Like I said, this is it's very situational. You have to be up close and personal to be able to use this perk effectively. But I still think it's fun. It's not the end of the world. It's not the most competitive thing ever. But I think a lot of casuals will look at this and say, it's actually kind of cool. And it's kind of, a throwback to OG COD, how that used to play, where you used to be able to, actually melee. You use a knife while having your primary still out. I think people are going to enjoy this one, but I don't think it's going to be the, the most mind-blowing thing ever introduced into Call of Duty history, but it's still welcome in my opinion. Also, in regards to Black Ops 6, I'm kind of amazed how few people actually use their melee weapons. It's a very fast-paced game, a lot of close-quarter engagements. A lot of people are really, frustrated with how people slide around and they're all up in their face and, they're getting up and, but pull out a knife. That's what I've been using a lot of the time when it comes to Black Ops 6. It's very, very useful, especially when you're trying to close the gap and you're up in a building, maps like Payback, for example, outstanding to pull out a knife and run the close, quartered areas. People don't really do it too much, though. They still stick to their guns. So maybe with this perk being introduced and, people actually might equip this perk, they can see the potentials of using melee weapons in Call of Duty. Again, guys, don't forget, Treyarch purposely allowed us to have a primary, secondary, and a melee weapon all in one class. And like I said, it blows my mind that nobody ever takes advantage of the melee weapon. That's so stupidly overpowered, allowing us to have this advantage, In the past, obviously, it's always been your secondary weapon. Either you choose a pistol or you pick a knife, Usually pick a knife for speed so you can get to places faster, or you obviously have a pistol so you have a, backup secondary in case you run out of ammunition. But now you have everything, and nobody takes advantage of it. So hopefully this perk might shake up the balance a bit here, although I don't think it really will be that drastic. But ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the really juicy details of today's video. The brand new aftermarket kit for the MP5, which is basically just a 10mm ammunition mag. And it is, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, guys, at first I was a little iffy with it. And I did have to change up my MP5 class setup just a slight bit. But in my personal opinion, I can't imagine myself going back to the base MP5, which is really weird for me to say. Maybe in ranked, I'm going to use the base MP5 because I'm sure this mag won't be allowed in there. But when it comes to pub matches, it's just, it's very, very, very fun. Ladies and gentlemen, basically, the pros of this MP5 aftermarket part are basically damage range, bullet velocity, and also overall damage. So yes, this gun is going to be hitting a slight bit harder than the base MP5, and the cons of this weapon are going to be recoil, vertical recoil, and fire rate. So it's going to shoot partially slower, and it's also going to have a bit more kick. Now, when I initially heard this, I'm like, dude, really? So it's going to shoot slower, have horrifying kick, but the damage is going to be a slight bit better. I was a tad bit skeptical because the base MP5 is already just, an awesome piece of weaponry. It's amazing in BO6. But low-key, after trying it for a decent amount of time, it has grown on me. Now, statistically, yes. The damage isn't, like I said, drastic. Although, you will notice it in-game. Once you get maybe about 2 games in, because the first game I was a little, like I said, skeptical. It took me a little while. I played with it. I even did well. It wasn't a bad match. I still held a 2+ KD. I was still grooving, but I just couldn't really put my finger on if I liked it or not. But after 2, 3, 4, 5 games of using the brand new MP5 aftermarket part here, I've grown an addiction. And again, I had to change up some of my attachments, which I will go ahead and flash up on the screen. And as you guys know on this channel, I always say, you guys know it, don't always focus on what I'm putting together. Don't focus on what anybody's putting together. Make your own classes. But this is what I personally went ahead and came up with. I had to switch a few things around. I was running a barrel, mostly because I was using the Tommy gun blueprint. And I really love the little, the iron sight on that much more than the base MP5 blueprint. But it is what it is. I removed it so I can go ahead and have a bit more recoil control because seriously, like I said before, this gun kicks. It really kicks. And if you want to engage at medium, long range is going to be a bit rough. I wouldn't even bother with that one. But if you want to get some medium range engagements, the best thing for you to do is to deck it out for some decent recoil control. Now, like I said before, it's not the end of the world because it's still an MP5 and it's made to be an SMG. And this fire rate decrease is not horrifying. It's not like it's shooting like the PP19 or something like that. No, it still shoots perfectly fine. And you'll find yourself being able to get up close and personal, just like an SMG still, maneuver, and absolutely destroy with the extra damage boost that you get with this aftermarket kit here. But ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, this weapon is freaking awesome. I highly suggest once you guys go ahead and unlock the MP5 aftermarket part kit here to give it a go. Please, it's definitely worth your time. You're going to have to rearrange your MP5 a slight bit because it's definitely different compared to the base MP5. And I've bounced back and forth between the two as well. Just so you guys know, I didn't just, only put on this MP5 and say, yep, this is the only way. This is the only MP5 I'm going to use. No, I literally spent a whole day just bouncing back and forth, playing with the base MP5 using the 10 mil. You go back to the base using the 10 mil. And the base just does not feel, and the funniest part about it, hear me out, the MP5 is my second most used gun in this game, so you best believe I love this gun to death. And nothing has happened to it to make it a worse weapon recently. So it's not like it's changed, it's still, one of my favorites. But after this aftermarket kit, I can't go back. I don't know, maybe I can go back later, maybe I'll feel it out. But something about this new kit hits. I don't know if it's the refined fire rate along with the recoil attachments, making it feel like I'm a bit more consistent instead of, kind of spraying. Or is it the damage increase, making it easier to take down opponents? It just feels good, especially if your shot's feeling crispy. So again, I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. But overall, Treyarch has been kind of stepping it up when it comes to the content they're adding into this game. As you guys know, I kind of enjoy this brand new event. It's nothing crazy, obviously. I'm not, saying, oh yes, Treyarch has saved the world. Black Ops 6 is saved. But it's definitely a step in the correct direction compared to events that we have gotten in the past. this event is actually, filled with some pretty decent stuff that is fun to play around with. And I've been enjoying messing around with it. So, we'll see. We got a lot more stuff to cover as well. So keep your eyes peeled on the channel. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. I post daily here at 8 in the morning Eastern time. And of course, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch, starting between 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, if you guys are interested, I'll link that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.